episode 32 here of the Bullpen. Obviously, 3A, 4A state this past weekend, so a pretty big weekend wrapping up the IHSA season. How are you guys doing? I know we've had some events going on this week, last week. Kind of been a busy time of year for us, but how's everybody doing?
I'm good. It's always a little bittersweet with the high school season ending because I love it. We get to see so many prospects. The state championship's always a blast, and um, it's just now it kind of transitions into the summer, so it's good and bad. How about you guys?
I'm kind of in that same boat. It's like you get so excited to go to Joliet for state, and then it's like, Dan, we were walking to our cars Saturday night after Libertyville won 4A, and it was like, dang, like gotta wait a while to watch these guys play for like their high school teams, right? Hopefully, we'll see a lot of these guys over the course of the summer, but it's definitely bittersweet. We obviously, I think all of us on this call have a ton of fun covering the spring season. I think, like Drew, you were saying, it's probably what we get the most out of for what we do from a scouting perspective. So it's definitely bittersweet. I'm on board there.
And it always ends with like some of the best baseball we see of the year too. You know, you go through
Totally.
the whole season watching games, and then everybody's kind of locked in and at their best come state. The weather's good. You know, we battle the weather all spring long in Illinois, and you're sitting there and you at least are over 70 degrees at state. I know on Friday it was rainy for most of the day, but regardless, like it's just tough to say goodbye. But yeah, now on to the summer. And I know, I mean, I say that we still have things we need to finish up here with the spring. We have big decisions to make with the all-state teams and player of the year, and there's some tough choices all around. But and College World Series is going on right now too, Gavin, which I've been kind of trying to keep an eye on with Murray State. A lot of cool stories. Louisville, Coastal Carolina, LSU, Arkansas. I think they're all still in the mix here.
Yeah, I saw. I think Louisville plays at 1 today. They play Coastal, so I was gonna try and check that out this afternoon. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens here. I haven't stayed in tune with it too heavily, but I've kind of kept an eye on it from afar. So we'll see. But yeah, looking at 3A, 4A from last weekend for the 4A level, Libertyville won the 4A state title. McHenry got second, Normal Community got third, and then Brother Rice got fourth. And then for 3A, St. Lawrence, they won the 3A state title. Bennett Academy got second, Triad got third, and Cary Grove got fourth. So congrats to all those teams making it to state. Even if you're not winning, it's still a huge honor to be there and play those teams. I thought it was a really fun weekend. Really good games on Friday that I saw. But Tyler, I know you and Dane were there on Saturday as well.
Well, I want to shout out Friday again because I think the baseball, like the field, both fields, both the 3A and the 4A fields, I felt like were absolutely loaded going in, and I felt like Friday really lived up to the billing. That game to end Friday night, like Drew, you were still there for it. Like McHenry, Brother Rice, I mean, it was exactly what that game should be. It was two of our top four teams in the Power 25 at the time going at it, and game of the year type stuff. So Friday was awesome. Yeah,
Especially like you have Brandon Shannon, who's one of the top arms in the state. The numbers he put up this year are crazy. He, helped lead McHenry all throughout the spring. Even like you get a guy like Caden Wozniewski that goes down. So McHenry needs guys to step up, and Brandon Shannon just stepped up that much more. But he's facing Brother Rice, who I think arguably was the top offensive lineup in the state, and really showed how talented he was. But then also like the game before that, the Libertyville Normal Community game, going to extra innings, like you get a guy like Drew Stevens coming off the bench for Normal Community in a huge spot. He's not playing in state because he's got a little, hamstring issue, and you can see him battling his hamstring the entire at bat. But he's taking good at bats. He works the count to like a 7 pitch, at bat, and then he grounds out, hits a ground ball, and he's got to give it everything he can to get down the line. And man, he really showed how competitive he was. And that's just kind of what that environment is all about. Like guys just doing whatever they can in their power to try to bring home the state title for their team and for their community. And like, just, I know Normal Community didn't win that game, but that effort, like, it gives me kind of goosebumps just talking about it, seeing him kind of just give everything he had, getting down the line. But you're right, Tyler. It was a really, really good Friday there, semifinal games. That was one of my biggest takeaways. And not to take anything away from the 3A games, it was just the nightcap and the afternoon were extremely good games.
He had Monmouth United and Forston, who are both now eliminated. um, you gotta
This is a
stop
tough
laughing.
segment here. This is a rip on Gav segment. I think we're all taking way too much joy in being able to rib on Gav.
I think the only thing that gives me joy with this segment, ragging on Gav, is, man, everybody in Instagram and Twitter has been saying how Gavin's cooking. Well, I want to know what he's cooking with, because if this is cooking, I don't want to cook. It's been a lot of fun, I think, for all of us, except maybe Gavin. Looking at the standings, and Gavin is sitting in last still at 34 points.
The one thing I noticed about those numbers, Tyler, was that Dane is doubled Gavin.
I'm glad you pointed that out, not me. Feel like sometimes I'm kind of bullying Gavin on here, so it's good that someone else is sharing the love.
It's all good.
The beauty of it is like it's not bullying, it's facts. Like that, those are numbers. Like the numbers speak.
Yeah, and kind of getting into my favorite part here, just for reasons that we'll find out here in a second, Tyler. But what's our playoff final, like our playoff draft final update?
Well, I'm prepared to eat my crow here. Dane absolutely dominated this. Dane is definitely the head ball knower for the spring 2025 season. Dane won with 170 points. He accurately drafted 2 state champions, right? Sacred Heart Griffin and then Libertyville. So shout out to Dane. In second is this just pains me to say, but Gavin does get second place.
Oh yeah,
with 109 points. If anybody's been listening the last few weeks, I've been talking a lot of crap to Gavin, and it came back to bite me. But third place is Drew with 95. I finished in fourth with 92 points, and unfortunately Hammett finished in fifth place with 73 points. So a lot of fun. Like, I can't wait to do this again next year. I don't know about you guys, but it was definitely fun for me tracking it. Not at the end when Gavin started, I realized Gavin's going to pass me. That was brutal. Sitting there Friday in Joliet, and Gavin's just feeding it to me. So, yeah,
not
what
even
you got?
pass you, but I mean I passed you, and then Drew also passed you, because I'm pretty sure you were in second.
I was,
and
yeah.
You were talking a lot about it, but so you got 2 people pass you.
It's a learning experience. I definitely was overthinking some things with my 3A, 4A draft. My 1A and 2As were great. I'm very pleased there, but 3A, 4A was kind of where I fell apart. So learning experience for sure.
Yeah, I was not seeing the Gavin rebound coming. Especially the fact that he passed me. That kind of ticks me off a little bit. But no, congrats, Gavin and Dane. That is a remarkable number you put up there, 170 points. Just absolutely lapping the field. So congrats. And I know Sacred Heart was a big one for you, but you know what you're doing on these drafts. I'm going to have to step it up for next year.
I think there was a lot.
Well, let's give
ahead,
Dane. Let's give the winner a chance to have his press conference here.
Did do well in 1A, but I did pretty well at 2A through 4A. So, I mean, Pete was McHenry went away from getting 4th place and pushing Tyler down to 5. So,
oh, that is a tremendous call out right there.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda. So,
oh, I didn't know it was that close.
I live to see another day. That's all that matters,
man.
But yeah, so there was obviously a lot of talent that we saw at state and on both days, and even the playoffs too. But I don't know if there's anything you guys want to talk on, any guys specifically you want to mention. But I mean, I see Carter Harris is listed first here from Normal Community. He was a right fielder, uncommitted 2026. I know he made like a really, really good play in right field, throwing it to, was it second that he threw the runner out, trying to stretch a double.
Well, Josh Holst
ahead.
absolutely hammered that baseball off the right field wall. And Harris, I mean, credit to Harris. He played it perfectly, threw a strike. And, I mean, Holst was busting it out of the box. It was just one of those things. The ball was hit so hard. It got to Harris so fast off the wall. He turned, fired a absolute strike to second. And despite a valiant effort by Holst doing a little Javi Baez slide, they still called him out. But, yeah, no, that throw was really impressive. So keep going, because I didn't see all of his at-bats on the weekend. But normal community, he's a 2026?
Yeah, uncommitted 2026. Really good frame too. He's like probably 6'3", probably 170, 180. But no, yeah. I mean, Dane, I saw you had some guys in here maybe that you were writing down. Is there anyone you want to touch on?
Saturday morning, saw Brody Hasquin come out of the pen, sophomore, 2027 right-hander that was sitting 79.82. Simple delivery. Also had a low 70s breaking ball. He's also starting to get some interest I'm seeing on X for football. So an interesting two-sport athlete down at Triad. Going forward, he should be continuing to be a big arm. I think that he had like 15 games going into the weekend. So very interesting arm to watch.
No, I was just going to say, like, Triad, they make it to state. They were one of, like, my favorite teams I saw all year. And they're going to lose some guys, but, like, there's young guys that they have kind of littered across that roster and coming up. They had a freshman arm that I know threw for them a little bit. Like, they still have a bright future. But, no, keep going, Dane.
Yeah, and the other name I was going to say was Daniel Coyle for St. Lawrence, 2026. Third baseman, played both games. Very gritty third baseman. I feel like he made a few different diving stops past couple days, or Friday, Saturday, I should say. Also made some impact at the plate. Just a really gritty player that I really liked. Also hopped on the mound, was 83, 84. Still uncommitted guy to watch, but I feel like he's a guy that can fill in at third, second, corner outfield. I feel like you could throw him anywhere and he could ball out.
I think you're spot on with that. And, like, Daniel Coyle's always been a bat-to-ball guy, kind of top-of-the-order profile. One guy that stood out to me with the bat was Quinn Rooney from Bennett, left-handed arm. Like, I had personally kind of known him in the winter just because he was up to 87 at our preseason All-State. And he's 6'5", and it's how do you not like a lefty up to 87 that's a sophomore that's 6'5". But then you watch him swing the bat, and you're like, okay, this guy may just be as good of a hitter or better. Because there's all kinds of levers in the swing. He can leverage the baseball. It's a natural uphill, like lofted swing. And he was on the barrel a couple times when I was watching. He's a long-strided runner, too. Like, he's just an upside left-handed hitter that I'm going to be kind of keeping tabs on here in the next couple of years.
And then there were a few performances, Gavin, I wanted to just throw in here. I know leading into state last week, we really didn't talk about anything we saw over super sectionals and like sectional finals, but Connor Ellenteny, right-handed pitcher out of Mount Carmel, 2026, going to Notre Dame. What he did in their sectional final game against Brother Rice, it was by far the best I've ever seen Connor. Mechanically, stuff-wise, his ability to control his fastball. It was the best I've ever seen out of him. This is a guy saw last year as a sophomore, a guy that, Drew, you also saw, and it was kind of like we're wanting to bring him down to the future games, and it kind of looked like he just really didn't have a ton of confidence as a sophomore.
He's still kind of like figuring some things out.
Right. And watching him in their sectional final against Brother Rice, it was like a totally different guy. It was like, okay, this kid's kind of taking the next step on the mound, like zero lack of confidence. The most personality I think I've ever seen out of him on the mound. True bulldog, just, getting his team fired up. He ended like almost every inning, it felt like, with a big strikeout to get his team back, to go to the plate. So just want to shout out Connor. Brady Cunningham.
Shout out Mount Carmel with that too, because the run they made again in playoffs, like, super impressive. They didn't have Ian Tosi all year. Look out for them next year. But I know you were going to get into another prospect.
Yeah, no, that's a good shout out. Then I saw the super sectional game between Brother Rice and Providence Catholic. Awesome game. Brady Cunningham, I know we've talked a lot about him this year, and to me it's just really impressive. He's only a sophomore. Pitching in probably the biggest game of his life to that point. Listen, Providence Catholic comes out swinging those first couple innings. They get a few runs on him. the way he was able to settle down and give his team length out of on the mound and continue to go. I want to say finished maybe with 5 innings, and then they went to Jackson and Tannick, but the guts that I felt like he showed on the mound was super impressive. He definitely didn't have his best stuff, but he made it work. So I want to shout him out there. And then it was our final look at Nate O'Donnell and Enzo Infelice out of Pravi. 2 guys that have just had awesome careers for the Celtics. They continued to do that in that super sectional game. Nate O'Donnell started on the mound just a couple days after, Drew, you had seen him pitch in the sectional final. Kid didn't, you couldn't tell he'd only had a few days off. And now I know in the sectional final, he only went, 2, maybe 3 innings. Whatever. Yeah. But the velo was the exact same as when you saw him, Drew. It's sitting low 90s, running up to 92 or 93. And Enzo Infelice, excuse me. Man, what a hitter. His first at bat, he hits a solo homer, and then nearly leaves the yard again 2 at bats later on a ball. I swear it was up at his eyes and takes a dead center. Stays in the yard. And then his last at bat almost leaves the yard poolside again. So, gonna miss watching, those 2 guys over at Pravi. I'm excited to see what the next level holds for those guys, whether it's pro ball or Nate's committed to go play at Minnesota, Enzo Cincinnati. So just want to shout out those 2 guys. I know they had awesome careers for Coach Mark Smith over there at Pravi, and it's part of, the bittersweet part of saying goodbye to this season is, we're going to not see some of these seniors anymore. So just want to shout out those 2 performances.
And I was going to highlight those 2 guys from it would have been the sectional final that I saw Providence play Lincoln Way East, and Nate O'Donnell was on the mound. Really impressive. And then Enzo, he's facing Jack Bauer. It's, everybody in the crowd, all eyes on those 2 guys as Enzo's stepping in the box and Jack's pounding fastballs, and Enzo squares up a 101 mile an hour fastball right back up the middle. Had a huge year for Providence. He's a guy, I know as the season progresses, just full disclosure for anybody out there, we're discussing player of the year candidates. And Enzo, with the offensive numbers he put up, it was squarely in the mix, still is. I think if Providence gets over the hump, gets to state, Enzo's squarely in the mix for player of the year. That's how impressive a year he had, because there's other guys too, when you look at 2-way numbers versus what Enzo did, there's some video game numbers out there, but man, what a spring. One of the best right-handed hitters that's come through Illinois in the past handful of years for sure. I also wanted to just shout out Lincoln Way East. Before that Providence game, they're taking pregame and their infield was super crisp and they're full of sophomores. The Evan Riffs of the world, Casey Mikret, and there were some others, but really, and that's Coach John McCarthy leading that crew over there, but I was just really impressed watching the pregame infield, knowing all these guys are young sophomores getting ready for a sectional final, and the Griffins have a bright future as well. So a couple names on here though, Gavin, that we got to see on that Friday at state.
Yeah, so Gavin Swartz, mentioning I believe it was a sectional semifinal that I saw. He threw an 85-pitch complete game, ton of strikes with his fastball, curveball, slider, changeup, and it was the best I had seen him. It was just pure dominance, ton of swing and miss, and really impressive. And then on the state semifinal game on Friday, I don't think the control was there as much, but man, he grinded it out and really kept Normal Community in that game, 2-1 game, when they lost to Libertyville. But I think there was a couple, or I know one for sure, a bases loaded, maybe 1 out or no outs that he ended up getting out of the inning without a run coming across. But just the last 2 performances for Swartz here have been really impressive and really trending up. And it was just in big time games too, to see him do that. It was really, really impressive.
No, especially you see a junior stepping up in a big situation like that. And you said it, there were multiple high pressure situations where he had to make a pitch or a couple pitches, and he did so. Big kudos to him. And then you got Max Heineman on here who's, catching for Normal Community. And I know you saw him a bunch.
Throughout the playoffs, he was kind of their, table setter in the lineup. Like he was, I think in the sectional championship game, he had a 2-run home run that put them up over O'Fallon. Like they were down 6-4, I think, or 5-6, and he had a 2-run home run that took the lead. And then defensively, like he's just been really good, throwing out a lot of runners throughout the playoffs when I've seen him. He threw out a runner on Friday night on his knees at second base. I think he's really continuing to get better behind the plate. Behind the plate, and then at the plate hitting, he's always been kind of that guy that not a ton of swing and miss. It's hard to get a ball past him. Not a ton of strikeouts. Like just a very composed hitter, knows the strike zone. So Heineman's really, really impressed me, and I think defensively, if anything. But yeah, that's what I got on those two guys from the Normal community.
I was going to mention one other thing that stood out to me from state, but watching the McHenry game on Friday, they were playing Brother Rice, and the top of McHenry's order is all young guys. It's Carver Cohn's a freshman, Landon Clements is a sophomore, and Caden Wisniewski's a sophomore. And the run times that I was getting down the line on those guys were elite run times. Carver Cohn especially, I'm talking 4.1s, 4.2s. Out of all those guys, Caden Wisniewski's a right-handed hitter running a 4.2 for me down the line. Just speaks to the athleticism that they had at the top of that order, and I'm sure all the pressure that they put on teams throughout the year, with the pitching that they had. That was a dynamic group. Really, really impressive stuff out of McHenry. And they're just another program, like we mentioned it, Libertyville, like they've got some young guys in the mix, Triad, young guys in the mix. McHenry's top 3 hitters are all coming back for multiple years. They've got Caden Wisniewski on the mound. Bryson Elbrecht was good for them. So it'll be fun to see what McHenry does moving forward.
And I was thinking Trey Cole. I saw him last week at the Super Sectional against Triad for Champaign Central. Came out of the pen and was throwing 88-90, topping out at 91. Also mixed in a mid-70s slider. Looked easy, looked really good. Short little stint, but just have to shout him out real quick before we move on to the next section.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think today is we're lucky to have Coach Thompson at Libertyville and Coach Lotus from St. Lawrence on today. Just doing a quick interview with them after their state championships. So that we'll kind of transition into that. So appreciate those coaches hopping on. And congratulations to them for winning the state in their respective classes.
And one cool thing is like both those schools won their first state titles for their programs. So I find that like a little extra special here in 2025. Libertyville hoisting it for the first time, as well as St. Lawrence. And I know St. Lawrence has, been a program in the mix for a number of years. We're very fortunate and lucky here today to be joined by the 3A state champion, St. Lawrence head coach, Pete Lotus, capturing the state title for the first time in school history. I think just congrats are in order, Coach. And we just got into it briefly, but like I was going to ask you, hey, how are you celebrating? Like, what did the celebration look like? And it sounded like maybe it's been put on hold, but did you get any time to celebrate the championship?
Yes. Yeah, we did. Right after, pretty fortunate. Our school was very gracious in having a celebration for us, right after, so we got some time to do that, and it was just a great opportunity to see alums that were able to make it out, and then obviously our players and their families. So got a little time to celebrate Saturday night, and then we actually did a whole school celebration on Monday. For both the baseball and the softball team who went downstate. So
nice.
we had some time to celebrate. I don't think it's fully set in yet, just because it's kind of been on the go. But it was nice to celebrate, like I said, with the families and the school community.
Well, you've been at this a long time. I wanted to make sure I got it correct, but I think you've been at St. Lawrence for about 24 years, about 19 or 20 as the head coach, kind of depending on if you count the COVID year or not.
Right.
Impressive overall record, like 562 wins, 156 losses. You've made the state finals 4 times, and you finally captured it. And talking to Tyler here, right before you jumped on, like one thing that he found really cool, and I couldn't agree more with him, is like you did it for the first time with your son in the starting lineup, and your brother coaching with you. So like, first off, how cool is it to finally capture that state title? But then with those things alongside of it as well.
Yeah, it's obviously special, right? And anytime you win a state championship, and I think that it's really hard, but to do it in those circumstances, when you're down there and it doesn't work out, those are hard. I mean, anytime you lose the last game of the year, it's really difficult. But then you get so close, and it doesn't happen. For when we played very good teams, obviously, or made some mistakes or didn't play our absolute best, and it doesn't happen, and you sit there and wonder, man, why, and then you get a chance to reflect and work on the things, why it didn't happen, and I also think too. Things weren't meant to be in those years, and then, like you said, have an opportunity to share this season with my son, and obviously the other players, and obviously with Adam, my brother. So just made it even more special. I don't know if it gets much more special than that, but obviously there's all those other variables that just worked out. And you said to be able to hug Adam, to hug Mickey, along with the other players. Really, really special.
Yeah, is there anything with this group that stood out? You've had some special groups in the past, whether you're talking, the Matt McCormicks of the world, the Mike Cornackers of the world, like the list goes on and on, but was there anything with this group that stood out where you're like, okay, like I think we could do it with these guys? And you probably think that every year, because every year you guys no matter what the names are on the lineup card, you guys are going to compete and probably win 30 games and be towards the top of the conference. Like, I've been ultra impressed with how every year you're like, that's just what happens. But yeah, was there anything with this group?
Yeah, like you said, I mean, it's we've been super fortunate to have a lot of really good players and a lot of really good teams. I would say that the most special thing about this group was the balance that we had and the belief. Like we got contributions 1 through 9, and it wasn't always the same people on the same days. And like you said, we've had some superstars in my opinion, over the years, like you said, Matt McCormick or Kyle Wood, Rob Froyle going way back. But this group, I think we have a lot of superstars, like that's what I've been saying. I think this group had 30 superstars. They all embraced their role, but it was, we got contributions from everybody in the lineup. And then I think really at the end, it was everybody in the lineup. I think there was really no breaks in our lineup, and we did it, in a way that I think, we really consciously try to work on our, pretty aggressive style. I think, the pieces that we had fit our style probably better than ever. We had a lot of athletic kids that grinded out at bats. I mean, you look at our season stats and we have more triples than home runs. I think our JV doubled our home runs on the varsity level. So,
No way.
yeah, so it's just, we knew that was the type of team that we had to be successful, and it was something we talked about and we worked on a great deal. And that was kind of when we went into the playoffs. That was what we said. We're not going to back away from our aggressiveness just because we're in the playoffs, and not be afraid to run and not be afraid to get thrown out and not be afraid to get deep into counts. We knew we were going to face good pitching. Whether it was in, the regional, and obviously going into St. Rita, who we are super familiar with, and, and then to get Glotzbach in the sectional championship, and then
Yep.
Kid from Triad was, looking at his numbers, and it's like, man, this kid's really darn good, so we knew we had to execute our approach the whole playoffs, and then it doesn't get any easier with the Zagora kid from Bennett, so I'm so happy that we stuck to who we were, and I really think we played our best 2 games the last 2 games of the season, and that's super cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And not a surprise then when you're taking home the state championship, if that's the case. But
Yeah.
it was weird for us, like just looking at your club because, you lose a guy who had been basically a 3-year starter in Joe Olson.
Yep.
A top left-handed arm, and it's like, okay, you got Sam Chin, you got John Strakowski, you got Jimmy Benson, but some of these guys were unproven. And then to see the years that they had and the way that they stepped up from where I sit was just really cool to see, and obviously had to play a huge impact on the season.
Unbelievable. And I remember talking to you guys at the state convention, and really we talked about that. Like, we have some talented arms without a doubt, but none of them had thrown really on varsity. Sam couldn't, besides John. John was
Yep.
really the only one that threw, but he was in such a different role last year behind Joe and behind Declan Musil. So to see him step up in more of a leadership role and more of the like ace of the staff, and it's a hard thing to do, and John embraced it. But then, like you said, you get the outings that we got from Sam and Jimmy. I mean, man, he was special this year, to do what he did, and he did it against like the best teams. He no hits pretty much. We had to take him out because of pitch count, but Mount Carmel and that lineup is as dangerous as anyone, so, and then to see what he did in the playoffs was special. And then you got contributions and that was, I think, really why we had some success in the blue. We knew Sam, John, and Jimmy were going to throw, but then who was going to be that 4th guy? And like a guy like Carter Mosier, who coming back from an injury, we really didn't know what we were going to get. And, he ggave us outings. I think he was 5-0 on the year, so to him to throw one of those blue games and, without any varsity experience, I think was special. Yeah. And it was a young staff. We didn't get any innings from any seniors. We had one, I think 4 innings total by Enrique Villanueva. And, we couldn't take him out of catcher the whole season because Joe Torres got hurt. So, that was kind of the plan moving in. But the first week of practices, Joe gets hurt. So now we really can't throw Enrique at all. And he was a guy who did have some experience last year. So really, we had one guy, John, that threw varsity innings last year. So to see how much they progressed, and then also to be successful in that, we thought we might have some bumps in the road, and there were those without a doubt, but not many for an inexperienced group.
Yeah, and I just like sitting here thinking, even the 2-way guys that you were able to implement on the mound with the Corey Lesses and the Daniel Coyles, and just piecing it together, like really, really impressive. And I mean, I almost wanted to pull up our preseason 2026 rankings here as you're talking, because it's like you guys are going to be bringing everybody back on the pitching staff. So that's got to be exciting moving forward. But talk to me about the journey in the playoffs. I know you mentioned it a little bit, like, hey, I want to play my style. Like, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to put the pressure on the other teams. But like, was there a moment? Was there a game? Was there one point that it was like, okay, like this is hairy. If we can just get through this, I think this is the club, or kind of all the games.
Yeah, all the games are like that without a doubt. But those games are so hard, and there's so much that goes into it. And, we're all so high school kids, and, they see everything, they hear everything, so like the Simeon game, and that kid threw a tremendous game, the Christian Lott, and we're down 1-0 without giving up a hit in the first, and we have a couple innings where we strand some runners, and we really hadn't done that at all throughout the playoffs. And, all of a sudden it's the 5th inning, it's a 1-1 game. And, that was really hairy. And with that kid on the mound, and, again, the other thing with the playoffs, especially when you get to the super and downstate, the stadiums are different. You're playing on turf, which a lot more are turf now, but like it's a little bit easier defensively. And then you play in this huge park, and some of the balls that are maybe hits in other places, in high school places, are not. So anything can happen in those games. But yeah, the Simeon game, 2-1, obviously really difficult for us, and really fortunate we got a great outing from Sam Chin and Corey Luss coming in and closing the door. Yeah, and like you said, I want to highlights that Corey and Dan on the mound. Those guys have been just pretty much position players, their first couple years on varsity, and then to see what they were able to do on the mound. I've been fortunate to see both those guys for a long time because they play with Mickey in the summer, and when Adam and I were talking, thinking about who we would have to have in those situations, I said, I've seen them throw. I know they're going to be tough out there, and they're going to give you everything they have, and they're not going to be fazed by the moment. And I think that was the biggest thing with them, and seeing what they did at the back end of the bullpen in those playoff games, I think was special.
Well, and I was sitting there on Friday watching your game kind of unfold, and I'm like, man, who's in the I don't see anybody in the bullpen. Who's in the bullpen? And then it's Corey Less coming in from center field. I was like, oh, all right, makes sense. So that's awesome to hear them step up that way. Huh?
We snuck him down there in between innings, and it was really short because he was up third in the inning. So Adam's like, I know you're up third. Get down there and throw.
Yeah. Well, and it just speaks to, the same way you're talking about them on the mound, that they're not going to be fazed by the moment. They're the same way as position players, when you watch them, which is really, really cool. And, Coach, what's next for you here? Are you going to get some time to soak this in? What do they do with the trophy? Or are you just on to camps and next year, or what's it look like for you?
Yeah, pretty much. We had the grammar school camps, but then we also had all of our lower level kids in starting Monday. So it's kind of back at it. Did give the varsity guys off this week, and we get our 20 practice days this summer, so we're going to take advantage of those. Obviously, it's a little more difficult nowadays with them playing. I think all of our guys are in Indy this week at the MPL. So, I want to give them some time, but it's a great point. We sit here and talk as coaches about, all right, now this summer is going to look a little bit different. It's going to feel a little bit different. We played so late. We were fortunate to win the state championship. How are we going to keep pushing these guys to be better? And I think it starts with giving them a little bit more leadership roles, which they're going to have as seniors anyway. So, I think that's the plan, making sure that they develop their game. And, I'm already thinking about ways that I can challenge them and what they need to work on. And, and that's the great thing about this group. Honestly, they always tried to get better. And, we're never a finished product. We know that, and they embrace that, and that's really cool. And I think they're going to want to hear how they can get better and how they can even have a better season that they had, both individually and personally, and then our team wise.
Well, and I'm just sitting here thinking that's such a cool new challenge for you that you haven't experienced at St. Lawrence yet is, hey, last season was awesome. We won the state title, but repeat or new season and how you approach it and how you go about it. 'Cause you're always chasing, that trophy at the end of the season, and you finally captured it. So, either way, from where I sit, really, really happy for you, Coach. Awesome stuff. Congratulations. I want to open the floor to you if you have anything else you want to say to anybody out there, at St. Lawrence, and otherwise, just I hope you get to enjoy your summer a little bit because you deserve it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you and all the years of having an opportunity to talk to you, and obviously for all you guys, the opportunity to cover our kids, I think is special. It's awesome. It's needed nowadays, and as you guys know, with the recruiting process for our players, and and just coverage of high school sports in Illinois. I think, and you look at the teams that we have in our league, look at the teams that we have in Illinois, and I don't think baseball's ever been better in our area. It's crazy to see what you have sophomores, like Jimmy Benson and, other sophomores and freshmen, throwing in the 90s. It's crazy. I think, I'm really old, but like there might have been one kid in the state that threw 90 in Illinois. When I was playing. Now it's like everybody has a guy that does that. And, I think it's really rewarding too when our players from Illinois get an opportunity to go to other places and they expand, their network. And I think we've had a lot of players from Illinois have success at big time colleges, and that certainly helps. But I know you guys have a lot to do with that too. So, especially in this day and age of, all the coverage. So appreciate you guys and appreciate the kind words. And yeah, couldn't be happier for our players, our alumni players. Like I tried to tell all of them, pretty much our season ended, and I would say the same thing in all the other years. We're going to win a state championship at some point, and you guys are going to be part of that. There is no 2025 team without, being successful with the other teams, and it made kids want to come to St. Lawrence. And I know that a lot of the kids that are on our team now, came to St. Lawrence because of some of the players that we had in the prior years. So I think that's super important. I wanted always to make sure that they knew that and know that, and then obviously super happy for our current players and our school community. We're pretty fortunate here. We have. I know someone said. And I appreciate that. We have one of the nicest fields in the state, but that's only allowed because of our support that we get from our administration. We're getting $1 million training facility that's going to be built, start construction here in a couple weeks down our right field line. So wow. That's going to be pretty awesome too. So I just feel like we've always been really supported, and that's important in being successful.
Well, that's awesome stuff, and I think you're spot on. Like, the state of Illinois has never been in better shape when it comes to the talent coming through here. And for us, like, we love it. Like, we're in a great state to cover high school baseball. We're super fortunate to have coaches that care, and like these good programs that are run by these head coaches that care as much as you do. Like, it's such a refreshing thing to see. So kudos to you, because I know how much you care and how much you get after it and coach up your guys. And it was a really fun state tournament to watch, and I hope you enjoy your summer, Coach.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I will, for sure. No matter what I'm doing, it'll be a little bit better because of that. But yeah, thank you guys for having me on, and always appreciate you guys.
Well, thanks, Coach.
All right.
Yeah, well, we're fortunate enough here to be welcomed by Matt Thompson, the head coach of Libertyville High School, who is still probably in celebration mode. Just captured your first 4A baseball state title for Libertyville's program. Never been done before, so congrats, Coach. How you doing?
Doing great. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been quite a ride.
Thanks for coming on. There's a lot that we would love to dive into just about your season and all the ups and downs that every team takes, on the journey to a state title. But, like, before we get to that, what's the celebration been like? How's Libertyville been doing? Did they welcome you back with open arms? What's the last couple days been?
Yeah, so when we got back to town after a crazy bus ride home, the band showed up and probably a couple hundred people in the parking lot to greet us when we arrived. And yeah, it was surreal just to have everybody there. I mean, it was like 11:30, 11:45 at night. And, our players have been celebrating. We've been celebrating as coaches, and we're going to cap it off with a pep rally on Saturday at the field.
Nice.
So that should be a pretty cool event for our kids to be a part of, and really our community, which has really shown up for us at all the games in the playoff run. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was an impressive year, 36-4. And if I mistake any of these stats, let me know. But, like, all the records you guys broke, like, what is something you're most proud about with this group? Because I look at it and, like, this was kind of a couple years in the making. You had Holst, Quinchambeau, Lockwood all playing as sophomores. I remember watching you guys, that year. and just to see the steady progression of the club and how it kind of culminated into this year. Is there one thing that sticks out, or a couple things?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of touched on it with the growth of those three guys. Those three guys were put into leadership roles at a young age, and we asked a lot of them. And they certainly had some growing pains along the way, but they built up and became like the guys that we could trust the most, and they brought everybody along with them. One of the most impressive things I think was how all three of those guys treated our whole team, from top to bottom, you know, whether it was BP, on any given day when I'm throwing, 600 pitches to everybody on our team, and they're encouraging them. They're trying to help them get better, even though some of those guys didn't see the field in the playoff run. But it just made an atmosphere where we had everybody all invested. So that really paid off big time. And so that's the thing that stands out. I mean, you mentioned the records. Like obviously, the school record one is pretty cool. We actually tied it with the team from '96, which my brother was on that team, and they were highly ranked all year. And so we tied it, but I think we have the trump card in that we took home the state title.
Absolutely. Um, was there a certain point, like throughout the season or in the playoffs, where you're like, oh yeah, this is the club? Because I even kind of remember talking to you at the convention before the season, and it was kind of like, yeah, watch out for us. Like we should be primed and ready. So I knew you felt good about your club, but was there any point where you're like, all right, like this was the defining moment, or never really came about?
So I don't think there was a defining moment. Like you said, when we saw each other in, was it January?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we knew we had a strong club. We knew we'd be good. But obviously, there's a ton of great teams in Illinois, and playoffs are a whole nother beast. You never know what's going to happen. So really, we just kind of try to focus on being in the moment, being present, and kind of one step at a time. And we just had goals set throughout the year that we kind of would check off as we go. And really, the first one was the trip to Arizona, the Coach Bob Invitational, which we end up winning, obviously. And, the team we beat in Arizona, Valley Christian, they didn't lose the rest of the year. They won the 3A state title. So that was kind of cool. And our kids kind of brought it up like a couple weeks ago, like, Coach, that team didn't lose the rest of the year. I'm like, I knew. I was tracking them. But so at that point, we win a tournament that really we're not supposed to win, an Illinois team coming down and competing against California teams, Nevada, Oregon, and obviously Arizona. And, we won it. And then we get back home and we kept that rolling for a bit. So we knew we had what it took. But, again, once you get to the playoffs, it's a game of inches. Like, we had a couple, 3 one-run games in the playoffs.
I was gonna ask that. Yeah, if there was like one game that was the scary game that like once you got through, then the guys kind of loosened up and could breathe a little bit. Because I feel like that happens every year. Brother Rice played in a couple tough games in the playoffs, and I know Lake Zurich kind of had you guys maybe bases loaded in the last inning or something like that. So was there a game that stands out in that regard?
Yeah, really, I think there's 3 of them. The Prospect game was a 1-0 win, walk off, and I had the best view of it because Nick Farmakis was running from second to third. They had a play at third. Kid made a great throw, and it nicked his helmet and got away, and he scored. So we walked that game off. Then, obviously the Stevenson or at Stevenson playing against Lake Zurich, really good team. Mike did a great job with that group. And yeah, right down to the end, and having Seiler go out there and say, all right, well, you're the best hitter. Let's give you this fastball and see if you can hit it. And, he challenged him. So that was a huge moment, a great moment for Zach, a kid that, was kind of injured throughout a lot of his career at LHS. And, he got a lot stronger and improved a ton. So that was big. And then, yeah, that the normal game was kind of crazy. They had the go-ahead run on, I think it was third on that play that tipped off Chase's glove. And Trevor ended up making the play and getting out of the 7th to get us to the 8th. So those are the kind of the 3 maybe most nerve-wracking moments. Obviously, I think the biggest relief game was like once we got rolling against Maine South, because obviously Josh started out a little jittery, I think, and giving him 2 runs was tough. But then striking out the last 3 with the bases loaded in that first inning, and I knew we were going to win when Wilbur he knocked in a run, made it 2-1. So it was 2-1 after the first. I'm like, we got this. Our kids are ready. They're gonna hit this guy. So
Well, I love that. And I love how all those memories like are so crystal clear for you too. Like multiple different games, moments. And I love that it's a guy like you're talking about, Zach Seiler, that steps up. And that's the cool stuff, right? Like those guys that maybe have battled adversity and face a big moment and rise to that occasion. It makes that championship extra sweet, I'm sure. What's next for you here? What's next with these guys graduating? Like, do you guys just get right back into camps, or what happens?
so we're gonna celebrate this for a while. A lot of the summer, I think. We don't do camps anymore in the summer with our guys. So many of them are playing on different teams. They're all over. Really, like some of our kids had games the next day. They were playing on Sunday after the state championship, which is crazy. But at the same time, they're ready to get back into it, ready to get into the grind. I think about our seniors. Like Quinn is at the MLB Combine right now. Josh leaves on Monday for basic training. So these guys are all kind of going their separate ways. And I know Cole and Quinn they got picked for the All-State game or whatever the All-Star game.
Okay.
I think Cole's going to be able to go. I'm not sure if Quinn is going to be able to make it, but that's cool to be, a part of that All-Star game. But as far as thinking about next year, probably in a week or two, I'll start kind of looking at our personnel. And what I did this past summer is I kept reaching out to our guys throughout the summer, just asking them how their games are going, what they need from me, and what I could do to help them to get ready for next year. So,
Well, what's cool from where we sit, it's like every event we run, we're in the winter running a bunch of events, seeing a lot of players. There's a lot more talent coming through that Libertyville pipeline. So you should have no slowing down. Obviously, losing those seniors that you're losing are going to hurt. But, you mentioned Wilberding, a really talented sophomore that hit in the middle of your order. You'll have him back. And he catches, plays outfield. He probably can't catch for you guys when Quinn's back there because he's just such a rock. But, maybe some different opportunities for him. And any guys that you're excited for, like maybe to take a bigger role next year? I know it's early to talk about that, and if you want to tap the brakes on it, feel free. But yeah.
So from a pitching staff point of view, obviously we have Chase and Brady Bunick coming back. We add lefty and Nico Harper, who's he got some innings for us this year, and we definitely think he's going to play a bigger role. And then our pitching staff that's coming up that was on JV, a lot of those guys probably could have pitched varsity. Madden Kotz, Axel McKnight, Tyler Kohlhofer. I mean, we got a lot of guys in the staff that we're excited to, kind of slate in and see how they go and give them their innings in early in the year next year. And then, as far as our lineup goes, obviously we have a tough up the middle to replace, and obviously Quinn and Cole. But like you said, Wilberding, he's going to have a shot to be the catcher, and Trevor Wallace was at second. We know he can play third. We got Bodie Rohrbach back. Chase could be, at first, but Axel McKnight, you saw a little bit in the playoffs. He had a big hit in that the game at Vernon Hills, the prospect game. So he's a really good hitter. We're excited about him. And then our outfield, we got Cinar, we got Holmes coming back. And then, just a few other the pieces to fill in. Obviously, big shoes to replace with the 3 that were, 3-year starters. But
No, the way you rattled that off, I think you guys will be just fine. That's impressive stuff, what you have coming back, and despite the losses. Well, I can't thank you enough for just jumping on with us, Coach, and sharing some of this, postseason excitement that I'm sure the whole Libertyville, town is going through right now. Really awesome stuff, because you guys have had some good teams, good players roll through there in the past, and for you guys to finally capture it, and for you to become a state champion, like I'm really happy for you. I've had a relationship with you for a long time now. So really cool stuff. And if anybody else has anything, feel free. And Coach, if you have anything that you want to share to the public, feel free as well. So,
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, this was a full team effort. You need to have everybody invested, even the guys that aren't playing a ton. And we had that. We had a great group of seniors that kind of realized they weren't going to be having a large role in it. But if you looked into the dugout, you wouldn't notice that. They were absolutely incredible. And then our community was really behind us, which is cool. We had Libertyville days. We were in the parade the day of the state championship, so we didn't have the trophy yet. But obviously, the pep rally will take place on Saturday, so we can celebrate that. But our Little League and our little Libertyville youth baseball programs were out at so many games. They have the pins that are like just like us. So these kids were looking at our players like they were MLB players. They were superstars. Our kids signed so many autographs. Um, the Maine South game, we busted out a new like bucket of balls for like our IO and stuff, and it was pretty full. We left the stadium, and Brady Bunick's our ball guy. He's like, Coach, there's only 4 balls left in here. Because our kids are just like signing and giving away balls to kids. I'm like, we guys think you're in the big leagues? What's going on here?
we're going to have some extra fundraising going on this off season. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Sure. That is so cool for your players and for those youngsters in Libertyville. What a cool experience. Well, that's awesome, Coach. Thanks again. Enjoy your day. Enjoy the next couple weeks. Soak it all in, and I'm sure we'll be in touch.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot.
All right. That'll wrap up episode 32 here of the Bullpen. Appreciate you guys listening, as always. Like, comment, subscribe on our YouTube, and then follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Appreciate you listening, and we'll see you next week.